The April 8, 2013 meeting of the East Penn School District Board of School Directors is hereby called to order. Please rise and join me in saluting the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is an award presentation. The lead for School Silver Award for Willow Lane Elementary School. Mr. Lancy.
Thank you very much. We have a letter from the U.S. Green Building Council signed by Richard Fedrizzi, and it says, greetings. On behalf of the U.S. Green Building Council, I would like to congratulate you on achieving leadership in energy and environmental design, which is LEED certification for Willow Lane Elementary School. Your project's final LEED rating reflects 40 documented and approved points, which corresponds to the silver certification level under the LEED for School rating system. Mr. Ballard.
This is the certificate received from the PDE, so we're very happy. We want to present this tonight. Thank you and the Board of Education for your support for building and being environmentally correct with our construction of Willow Lane. I'm going to ask you to stay here. Dr. Carrick, let me ask you, as I mentioned at our last board meeting, we've had three outstanding staff members from a variety of schools in East Penn who have done an outstanding job with our autistic support population for autistic students. So I'm going to ask Dr. Carrick if she would introduce our staff members and then Mr. Ballard give our certificates. And again, as I mentioned last board meeting, this is a significant award, and we certainly thank those outstanding staff members. So we'll start with
Erin Hadigan, Emmaus High School. Jen Blendemeyer. And this is for Michael Baer, West Coastal Elementary. He is absent this evening, so we want to thank him as well. Also, I would like to the supervisors of the program, Meredith France, the supervisor of the high school program, and Jennifer Curtis, the supervisor of the elementary program, and also the building principals who really support us, Tara Desiderio, West Coastville, and Dave Peperato at the high school. So thank all of you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is request to address the board. I'll remind individuals that they have 3 minutes and ask that you not be repetitive if possible on topics that many people are speaking on. The first request to address the board I have this evening is from Nicole Bassett McCungy, speaking on an EPIC candidates event.
I'll just take a minute. I just want to announce to everybody that EPIC is again partnering with the East Penn Chamber of Commerce to do a candidates night for school board candidates April 30th at the McCungy Institute from 7 to 9. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person who wishes to address the board is Susan Coonan of McCungy, speaking about Willow Lane Transportation.
Good evening. I wanted to first of all thank you for approving the .75 distance at last board meeting. We still have some loose ends, however, and I wanted to ask a few questions this evening. First of all, we have the .75 distance, but I know Mr. Glancy was absent at the last board meeting, and I'd like to know how we plan to calculate the .75. Will it be door to door? Will it be driveway to driveway? Also, some parents have been asking me, within a single development, will some families have busing and others not have it based on the distance? Also, I wanted to follow up on the status of the on-site plans and their review by Lower McCungy Township. I was at the Board of Commissioners meeting on Thursday and learned that the plans had not yet been officially submitted. I also wanted to just find out if there's a plan B, if the on-site plans aren't approved in time to make the infrastructure changes to the school before school begins in the fall. Also, I asked last meeting if it would be possible to put the on-site plans on the East Penn website to make them public. I recently read a news article that reported that the plans wouldn't or couldn't be posted online until Lower McCungy had approved them. I'm not sure if this is accurate or not, but the preliminary plans have already been viewed by the public at a Lower McCungy Planning and Zoning meeting on March 14th. So my question is, if they have been out there, why we can't put the revised plans on the website for the public to review? Also, I wanted to talk about a commitment to safety. When it comes to the on-site changes, we've been hearing a lot of discussion about controlling vehicle traffic. But I'm still concerned that safety is taking a back seat to getting all of the cars on the school property. Yes, we've been told about where crossing guards will be placed, but as a parent, I respectfully request that you enlist the assistance of a traffic or transportation engineer who is specifically trained in identifying safety issues. Ask him or her to review the on-site plans from a pedestrian, vehicle, bicyclist safety perspective. Perhaps we could even enlist the help of someone on the PennDOT Safe Routes to School staff for little or no cost. I think we owe it to the students and parents of the district to do everything within our power to make sure that the on-site changes are safe. Finally, I wanted to check in about the status of Dr. Moyer's parent committee. Again, I did put in my name to be a volunteer for this committee, and I have not been contacted yet. Finally, I just wanted to follow up on the 17-page report that I gave to you regarding the on-site changes and my concerns. As I mentioned in the report, it was not a comprehensive report. It was my attempt to open a dialogue about the changes and my concerns. Unfortunately, I really haven't heard anything back from the board other than in meetings that we're going to put in new speed limit signs.
Ms. Coonan, your 3 minutes are up. Could you
Okay.
wind it up, please?
Yes. I had gotten some feedback within the context of board meetings, but I was really hoping for a discussion. I do have some additional ideas, and I'll just say one more here. Considering adding signs that say no cell phone use during drop-off and pickup so we don't have inattentive drivers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coonan. Next person I have requesting to address the board is Jonathan Berger of McCungy, speaking about Willow Lane Transportation.
Good evening. Again, regarding the Willow Lane Transportation issue, I just wanted to just throw some general questions out there. Did you guys ever just take a step back and ask yourselves, why are the parents so angry? I mean, it hasn't been like your garden variety concerns and complaints. And I'll just ask some more general questions. Who is the #1 stakeholder in safety and transportation of children? Who would be most knowledgeable about traffic patterns before and after school and about the drop-off procedures? Who has provided a 17-page report identifying flaws in the proposed on-site drawings, which was quickly dismissed? Who has been promised a parent committee since last November, December, and has not yet had one established? He answered all these questions of the parents. I've asked time and time for a dialogue. We haven't had the committee. I called Dr. Moyer to see if we could have a town hall meeting, and he brought that up to his management team and I haven't had any results yet. So that's really where the ire comes from, is that we don't have an open dialogue. I also feel obligated to address the comments that Dr. Seidenberger made at the last meeting, which I wasn't able to attend, in response to my claim on the 11th of March. I did hear Dr. Seidenberger said he was right, but then I heard him also say that there was a meeting held on March 25th, and that's why there was an update to the calendar. To me, that doesn't classify as a good explanation. I provided data that the entry was created on the 25th, actually was created a couple times, and the fact that a meeting was held doesn't constitute a change to the create date, which I provided based on Google API. Now, full disclosure, I am an information technology manager for a Fortune 75 company. This is kind of what I do, so I don't think you're going to win an argument in that regard. But I'm willing to have a dialogue, and I'm willing to help you guys. I would like a formal investigation, actually, because this leads to other questions about information security. Who has passwords to update the calendar? Why are we modifying calendar entries after a meeting with the staff? The create date and time, I should add. Is that customary? Remember, report cards are online, aptitude tests may be as well. Who audits all this information? So it makes me kind of uncomfortable. I don't think you'll do an investigation. It may be water under the bridge. However, what are we doing going forward? I'd like to get to know you guys a little better. I'd like to have dialogue with the principal. I'd like to have another open forum. The one chance on November 27th for that to occur obviously wasn't publicized very well, and we're back to stage one. So please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berger. The next person I have who wishes to speak is Claire Kowalczyk of Emmaus, speaking on the Stoltz report.
Good evening, Dr. Seidenberger and members of the board. I come here this evening to express my condemnation for Mr. Julian Stoltz's recent public remarks as director of the school board. I don't believe I need to repeat those remarks, but let me add this clarification, which Mr. Stoltz shared just yesterday, April 7th, in his blog, The Stoltz Report. I don't love Todd's language, but he was making a valid point. Public schools in this country are wretched, brain-rotting institutions where conservatives are ostracized. You will also find on that page sexist and racist remarks, which I prefer not to repeat. Let's all take just a moment to review the following core values of the Pennsylvania School Boards Association. Commitment. We demonstrate our belief in public education and the importance of local school governance. Integrity. We are honest, responsible, and ethical in all we do. And respect. We recognize the dignity and worth of everyone by treating them with courtesy and fairness. Mr. Stoltz's disdain for public education, his use of his elected position as a platform from which he makes racist and sexist remarks, and his clear contempt for the children of our community, or at least the roughly 9% of whom live below the poverty line, show flagrant disregard for the values we have a right to expect of our school board directors. This man should not be in a position to influence decisions made about the education of our children. I understand that the board has no authority to remove Mr. Stoltz from his position or prevent him from participating, but you do have recourse. Members of the board, if you find Mr. Stoltz's words and actions as reprehensible as I do, I ask you to put forth and vote on a motion to censure him. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person to address the board is Hillary Smith, speaking about Julian Stoltz.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the board and make my voice heard.
I wanted to address the board on the subject of board member Julian Stoll's vile statements brought to the public's attention at the last school board meeting. I have a kindergartner in East Penn School District, and as an involved parent, I believe it's my responsibility to speak up. I was deeply offended by the comments Julian made on Twitter on March 8th, agreeing with the offensive content. The school board is supposed to act in loco parentis, in place of parents. This pattern of poor behavior has shown that he is not capable of making decisions worthy of that responsibility. Instead of apologizing outright and admitting that the comments were offensive, Mr. Stoltz decided to attack the parent who made the original complaint, then proceeded to attack and bully other concerned parents and community members in comments on the Lower Montgomery patch. A simple internet search unveiled a long list of offensive statements made by Julian as a public official, including the spreading of hurtful stereotypes, sexism, as well as utter contempt for the public school system that he was elected to serve. The fact that he does not see anything wrong with his statements is why the board needs to take immediate disciplinary action against Mr. Stoltz, just as any student or staff member of the East Penn School District would be disciplined for repeatedly making such offensive comments. I am here to ask this board to take necessary actions to discipline Member Stoltz from his position. His speech meets the definition of obscenity by violating the moral standards of this community and is not protected as an exercise in free speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Next person I have requesting to address the board is Byron Crudup of Wescosville, speaking about Mr. Stoltz's comments.
Thank you to the board for having me. Pardon my cold, but I would like to speak impromptu style about Mr. Stoltz and his comments. I'm a retired engineer from Air Products, 36 years, and I put two of my daughters through the East Penn School District, and during that course, I want to tell you, it wasn't easy. I had to constantly intervene with educators, teachers, who were lax in their understanding of what they were teaching. For instance, science. My daughters would come home and talk about all the accomplishments of white men without addressing anything having to do with the accomplishments of minorities in terms of science accomplishments, or females in terms of science and engineering and innovation. And I was constantly having to go and politely correct them. And I have to say that they took it very well. They corrected me when they thought I was wrong, and we had a very good relationship. My daughters graduated in 1998 and 1999, and they're doing very well. Now I have to say this. It's very hard to find people who really don't get it in terms of understanding how people feel when comments are made, when statements are made. It has to do with their integrity. And what we have to do is sort it out. I mean, fish it out. But when it's as overt as this, and I will say what you said, okay? When you call our school kids crotch fruit, that is offensive, Mr. Stoltz. That is offensive. And a mere apology just doesn't cut it. It shows an ignorance on your part, and you need to re-educate yourself. I'll be more than happy to assist you in that until the time of your re-election. We need people who will believe in our public school system so that our students get their fair share of education and not have to rely on people who have these innate feelings about how they really feel.
Mr. Crudup, could you wind it up, please, for 3 minutes?
I will. It's one thing to have actually stated something like that, Mr. Schultz. What you did was, as a sentient being, reflect on it and agree with it. And that's why I say you have to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crudup. The next request I have to address the board is from Connie Fetcho of Macungie, speaking of school board member blog and subcontracting.
My name is Corinne Fetcho. My daughter Maeve and I moved to the East Penn School District a little over a year and a half ago. She's now currently in second grade at West Coastville Elementary. We've had an outstanding time in the school district. Her teachers have been wonderful. The whole staff there is an outstanding staff, along with Mrs. Desiderio, their principal, who I was just speaking to before the meeting. I have to applaud speakers before me for staying so calm during their speeches, talking about Mr. Stoltz and his comments that were recently made on his blog, because I honestly cannot stay that calm. My daughter Maeve is a bubbling, energetic, excited little 8-year-old, and to have words spoken in that manner about her is inappropriate on so many levels. In addition, to even pass off that we're talking about other school districts or other children in other school districts is just not acceptable from anyone who works on behalf of children. Again, I too am calling for Mr. Stoltz to resign or to step down from his position. His behavior, even in this meeting, and the faces in which he's making as people are getting up to speak, are just not acceptable for someone who is supposed to be working on behalf of children and is supposed to be working on behalf of my child. In addition to this, we also have an issue coming up with subcontracting of our cafeteria workers and staff. I would really ask the board to reconsider doing this. When you have a staff that's dedicated, like the staff that is here at East Penn, on all levels, you don't want to lose that kind of dedication to the students here and to the employees. We need to keep good workers, and those workers stay in this community, live in this community, and have a commitment to this community. And to watch other people come in to work with our children at wages that really are not worth what they should be paid for the work that they do is just not acceptable. So again, I ask that you not subcontract out the cafeteria worker service. And again, Mr. Stoltz, it's just inappropriate.
Thank you. The last request I have to address the board this evening is from Risa Donegan of Macungie, speaking out about outsourcing of the lunch ladies.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. I also speaking about outsourcing of the lunch lady. I was a substitute lunch lady 13 years ago. So I know a little bit about it, not a lot, but a little bit. And I would just like to say, also, if there's lunch men, I apologize. Oftentimes, these lunch ladies are on first line to understand if there's a problem in the family. Because they watch these kids, they see the same kids every day, and they have a stake in our kids' lives. They care about our kids. So in other words, if you see a kid buying lunch every day, 1 year, 2 years, whatever, and then all of a sudden that kid stops buying lunch, that lunch lady is going to recognize that maybe there's something wrong in the family. Maybe somebody lost their job. Maybe something happened. Maybe the kid didn't have any money. That's really important for us to understand, and they would almost always be the first ones to know that, and they will report that to somebody. This kid's not buying lunch. Maybe the family is too embarrassed to apply for a free lunch. Maybe they don't know that they can apply for reduced lunch. So that's very important to consider, that these people really care about our kids. Also, outsourcing may end up backfiring. I know that in other school districts, and I don't have a lot of information right now because I didn't have my computer to do some internet research, but I would be happy to do that. In other school districts, I know that they've tried outsourcing, it didn't work, and they tried to hire all their lunch ladies back. I really ask you to reconsider this. It may end up costing us more, not just in money, but in the welfare of our children. I'd also like to point out that we can save money on some of these educational conferences. My daughter takes 2 classes at L-Tri-C for 1 semester and pays about $700. There's a conference for 1 day, $500. 3 days, over $1,200. 2 days, $321, plus you have to hire a substitute to make up that money. That's an awful lot of money. You can do a lot of these. I mean, I'm not against, furthering their education of the teachers and of the administrators, but maybe they should use the webinator now. That's a lot of money for a conference, and maybe we could save that and put it towards the outsourcing of our lunch ladies. These women have a stake in our community. They pay taxes in our community. Most of them live in our community, and they care about our students. And thank you very much.
Those are all the requests that I have to address the board this evening. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Can I have a motion, please? Second. All right, are there any comments or corrections to the minutes? None appearing. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is the 2013-14 adoption of the Lehigh Carbon Community College capital and operating budget. I understand we have our representative, Ms. Thompson, here with the team to be able to answer any questions you have. But first, we need a motion on the floor. Can I have a motion, please?
Second.
All right, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and tell you about some wonderful things related to Lehigh Carbon Community College. We do exciting things. We have wonderful articulation agreements, and in this day and age when everybody is concerned about money, the community college is a wonderful place to get an education at a very inexpensive amount of money in comparison with other institutions. I know you all got the budget book. On page 2 of the budget book, it indicates that as one of the sponsoring school districts, it's budgeted at $1,725 per semester if the student lives in the East Penn School District. If you would go to one of the SHE schools, which puts down Bloomsburg, etc., for a whole year, it would cost $6,428, that's tuition. For a whole year at L-Tri-C, it's $2,880. At Penn State, it's $15,562. And of course, at one of the SHE schools or Penn State, you probably have room and board to add to that. So the community college is a great value, and we have great programs, wonderful articulation agreements. You can start at L-Tri-C and you can go on to anywhere you want, actually, because our credits transfer to schools like the University of Pennsylvania and Princeton. If you would look on page 21 in your budget book, if you have your budget book, it more or less is the big picture. In terms of the whole budget, and there's 2 budgets, as you know, there's the capital reserve budget and there's the operating budget. The increase as far as the school districts are concerned is 1.7%. If you look in terms of East Penn, it's 1.4%. You'll recall that they revalued property, and hence that made some changes in how things work. At the present time, we have 89 students in the dual enrollment program. Last year, we had 56 students in the dual enrollment program. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions for Ms. Thompson about the budget? Jazz people here can answer any of them.
Yes, we have people who are very knowledgeable if you have any questions.
Not seeing any questions. Ms. Birdsall, Mr. Earnshaw?
I'd just like to express my thanks to the staff and the faculty and the administration at L-Tri-C. It's a fantastic asset to our community. It provides educational opportunities for many of our students, and as Ms. Thompson said, they can go on from there to transfer to even some of the most noted schools in the nation. So we appreciate very much the efforts they make to provide a quality education to the residents of the district.
Thank you, Mr. Earnshaw. Mr. Stoltz?
As someone who's had the privilege of taking part in the classes offered at LTRIC, though I'm not a college graduate, as has been much discussed in public forums in the last 2 weeks or so, I can tell you that they were every bit the equal of the classes I took at DeSales University, and it was my honor and privilege to continue to support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stoltz. Any other comments or questions? None appearing. Ms. Briggs, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Policano.
Aye.
Ms. Fuller. Aye. Ms. Donchev.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Stoltz.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson, for your representation of us, the East Penn School District, on the LTRIC board. Next item is the report of the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Thomas Seidenberger.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. I want to remind the board members and the public that one of the highlights of our school year will take place this Wednesday and Saturday. Fairbanks High School, Legally Blonde, our outstanding, I'm sure will be outstanding performance, will be held, and we certainly wish Mrs. Keebler and the cast lots of luck in their rendition of Legally Blonde. I just have a few announcements. I want to congratulate Dr. Ratnell and the fine staff at Lincoln. Last week we had visitors from Penn and CLIU 21, and they basically here to review Lincoln's school-wide positive behavior program, and I'm pleased to say that they passed with flying colors, and they will be receiving an award in Hershey on May 29th. So again, congratulations to Dr. Ratnell and the outstanding staff at Lincoln Elementary. Also, want to inform the board that third grade teacher Mike Morrow was recently identified as Station B104's March Teacher of the Year, so congratulations to Mike. And just a personal note, way back when, in another life, I got to meet Mike when he was just a young tyke. I worked for his dad. His dad was my boss in Phillipsburg when I was assistant superintendent. And I like to say that I had a lot of to do with Mike, but that's not true. But you know, when you read the letters about what Mike's doing in the classroom, you really are really proud. And this is, I can honestly say, this is a kid I knew when, and I'm so glad that that he's with us here in East Penn. So congratulations, Mike. Want to remind the board that now that we're in April, I can remind you that the National School Boards Association technology visit will be happening here in the district April 28th. The 30th, didn't quite get the number of people that we thought we might, but we still have visitors coming from Louisiana, Alabama, Texas, California, and so we're excited to host these fine folks. I want to remind the board that you will be receiving an invitation to attend our dinner reception, which will be held on Monday, April 29th at the Da Vinci Center. And again, through working with several vendors, we've had some nice people who stepped up and will take care of those expenses for us. Also, at the next board meeting, April 22nd, we're going to ask Mr. Moan to give you an update on some of the products that we're producing, to give you a full outline of the activities that are going to happen over those 3 days, and also show you some of our Moodle sites that will allow all our visitors to come in and customize their tour as well. We're also excited, we're getting a lot of interest from local school districts who may come for one day, and so we're very happy about that. So I think it's going to be a very successful trip. I want to thank Mr. Moan, Mrs. Gloyce, and all the staff members who have really worked hard, and I think this will be an outstanding 3 days in the district. And with that, I very rarely say something about impending resignations and retirements, but I do want to say nice things about two people that are on the agenda tonight. When I came to the district 6 years ago, Mike Syke was an outstanding person, and I will tell you this, that Mike has embraced change like few staff members we've had in this district. He's taken that department, phys ed department, aquatics, also driver education, and modernized that. And I will tell you that that was one of the first departments in this high school to totally embrace the notion of visual education. And I'm certainly going to miss Mike. We had great conversations last year as we tried to make the pool a great place for our students, and I just have nothing but admiration for Mike, and so thank you for your years of service. And then I certainly want to say something about John Stavinger. One of the really invisible people in our district, but we're certainly going to miss John. When I came here 6 years ago, I had a lot of questions about technology. And I was ready, quite frankly, to recommend that our services for our website be given to an outside consulting group. But a couple people convinced me to give some of our existing staff members a chance, and John was one of those folks. And so when you look at our webpage, John has played an outstanding part in developing all the things that we've had, whether it's the portfolio, whether it's been our dashboard, and even the work that he continues to do on the visits, the work that he does behind the scenes for Moodle and Google Docs. And I can assure you, I'll look each board member in the eye and say that John works with the highest of integrity, and we're certainly going to miss John. And thank you for your years of service, John. Wish you well in the public sector, but we're going to miss you here in East Penn. And with that, I do want to transition very quickly to the budget. I'm not going to spend a lot of time tonight, but as you would suspect, we have been busy working on the budget, and I can tell you that my optimism has not waned since I talked to you last time. I think we're in a very positive place. That means that we're not complacent. Much like we've had in other years, we will look at our revenues, and I'm confident that we'll be able to increase revenue streams. We'll also take a look at our expenditures, and I can tell you tonight that we've made some internal cuts. So the budget we presented last time was 1.69%. It certainly is not at that figure tonight. But I am very optimistic and very pleased with our progress, and I think you will be too. However, as I'm sure Mr. Bauer is going to report later on, there seem to be annually now, at least for the last 11 budgets in Pennsylvania, balls in the air that I don't think we can ignore. Although I'm less concerned this year than I have been in the past. Nonetheless, we still have basic education funding out there for $306,000. We'll have to wait and see if that's going to come to fruition. And it's something else that we certainly don't want to debate. This is not the correct forum, but I think someone did ask me last board meeting or one before if the governor's pension reform plan would go through the pension collar, as they call it, what would that mean for us here in East Penn? Well, that would mean that if the legislature would adopt the governor's plan as is, that would reduce our pension obligations by $582,000. So that $800,000 out there represents a significant amount of funding. So I do apologize I was not able to attend the legislative breakfast last Friday. Unfortunately, I do have another life in Middle States. As you know, I've been very active in Middle States for a long time. We had our commission meeting in Philadelphia last week, and we certainly are continuing with the good work of spreading quality education throughout not only the United States, but internationally. I'm pleased to tell you that even now, as we're sitting here tonight, Dr. Foreman is already working very fastidiously on evaluating public high school in Bermuda. So, I'm very proud that she's ascended so quickly. They view her as an outstanding leader in evaluating schools. So, but one of the things I do want to talk about tonight a little bit, and I'm going to ask Mr. Lansing. It seems the last couple of years we've really arrested spending in several areas, and certainly the parents always remind us about how high class sizes. You're absolutely right. We do have some elevated class sizes for the last couple of years. Hopefully that will dissipate and we'll be able to do some things as we move forward. But I think without going into a long discussion, we all know why it's been very difficult to hire additional people. Certainly, as you read the papers and look at our friends in Allentown, you can see the turbulent times they're having in East and other districts. We live away at that. Then in the other area, I think that we really not addressed, but again, as a tribute to our maintenance staff, our custodian staff, and hardworking people we have here, our buildings are in good shape. But I think I want to turn it over to Mr. Glancy and talk to you that, again, my optimism is spreading, and perhaps this may be the year that we can do some things with capital projects. So, Mr. Clancy, just going to turn it over, and you can brief the board where we are.
Let everybody get a copy of the revised capital reserve fund. I'd like to start with the bottom line, which would be the bottom right-hand corner. You can see right now we have $1,961,484 in our capital reserve. I'd like to digress just a minute and ask you to look at the top left and look where you see notes 2 and 3. If you look just below that, you'll see that note 2 and 3 are transfers from the general fund and capital reserve transfers because of refinancing savings. And if you just run across that line from left to right, you can see that over the years, we have transferred large amounts from our savings, from our general fund, into the capital reserve, and then we have used funds to do capital projects out of this fund. What we'd like to be able to do is this summer do at least 2 projects. 2 projects would be a Lincoln roof replacement and a resurfacing of the Lincoln playground. And if you drive by the school, unfortunately, you can't see what the roof looks like, but you can see what the playground looks like. We're looking at about $675,000 to do both of those projects. What I've been working with Mrs. Sertable and the superintendent about is the possibility of maybe taking some of the savings that we've gotten from our refinancing, putting it back into the capital reserve so that we can cover those projects. There are additional projects that we'd like to be able to do, such as boiler work in the high school, because right now it is not an efficient system, and we are wasting heat and we're wasting money because of the way that system is currently set up. So a revision of that system would actually give us an almost immediate savings in energy. We believe that would be a 2 to 3 year payback for that. What we're trying to do right now is, because we had a relatively light winter, we have a little bit of money left from our utility, natural gas, and fuel oil accounts. We'd like to be able to use that money to do the boiler work, because that's an efficiency in energy which we believe will be paid back over 2 to 3 years. So right now tonight, there is no recommendation on what we'd like to do, because the dialogue between the superintendent, Ms. Sertable, and I continue. But we're hopeful that at the next meeting, we're going to have a recommendation that we may be able to move forward so that we can do at least those 2 projects this summer, and possibly some other projects.
Thank you, Mr. Lancy. I will just say to the board that I think next board meeting, we're going to be prepared to give you some real numbers about where we are. And I think, and again, you can take what you want, but I'm still very optimistic about where we may be when this process is over.
Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Seidenberg? Ms. Heck?
Just a quick question, and you have to refresh my memory, because I'll have to go back and look at my material also. I think about 2 years ago, we were talking about these boilers. Did we do some of the boilers? And
we did some of the boilers. There were domestic hot water heater boilers that we had replaced. We went with smaller, more efficient designs. All of that work has been completed, and we are actually saving energy.
Okay, and then these are going to be the
These
same?
are more main building, full building boilers, and we're trying to get them to operate properly so that we don't have to have a large boiler actually working all summer long.
And this one was in the high school also, both the ones that we replaced before were in the high school.
Rebuilt part of the large boiler.
Okay.
We had a boiler front problem.
Okay.
Rebuilt that so that it's working properly. But the way the system is set up to continue to have hot water during the summer, we have to run that boiler.
Boiler. Okay, I knew it was in there, but I didn't remember.
You're absolutely right. We took out, when we were ready to complete the, how can I say, the borrowing for Willow Lane, we also asked the board to approve some additional capital projects at that point. But we did also some roofing work. And the good news at the time, and we did go out to bid for those projects, the good news was that the bids came in really put us in an advantageous spot. So, and I think Mr. Glancy shared with you that we reviewed by the engineers at that point, did not think the work that we had to do was as extensive as we thought, but now I think now we're ready to do work on phase 2.
Mrs. Sanchez?
Is this where we ask specific questions about the budget? I just had like 4 of things as I was reading through it, just for clarification.
I guess it's Dr. Seidenberger mentioned it in there. If there's a question for Dr. Seidenberger or Mr. Glancy.
Okay, we'll give it a shot. What does the more aggressive use of access funds mean as far as the federal access funds?
Personnel? You know, access funds are reimbursements for certain services for students who qualify. Okay. Basically for health services and some other special services. A little laws change a little bit. We have been using those funds most recently to help fund positions in special education. The whole notion of access is that it revolves around special education, and so I believe in that concept that if we're getting reimbursements, then that money should go back to help fund special education, not necessarily go back in the general fund. So I think an aggressive use of that means that maybe we can staff more people using those federal funds.
Okay, good. And that sort of leads into my next one is, I guess it looks like our federal funds are about a little less than $1.5 million. If we don't accept money from the federal government, do we have to do all the No Child Left Behind and the provisions and the reporting and the statistics and everything that go along with what the federal government sends down to us to do?
I'm not quite sure.
There are complications there because some of the federal requirements have been adopted by PDE as regulations. So even though not taking federal funds in many cases means you can't be given the federal penalties for failure to meet NCLB, state regulations may have supplanted those and there may be some overlap.
I'm not so sure the Bob Jones scenario would apply here, but rather than giving you information that may be incorrect, I would like to have the opportunity to explore and give you a firm answer.
I would like that. I've often wondered, and I thought that maybe that could fit into the proposals. And then I was wondering, there's $158,000, I believe, for books for the Common Core or revisions for the Common Core. I just wondered at what status are we in implementing the Common Core? And it's not really correct.
A good place. Are we there? No. But we have been working on Common Core changes throughout all the grade levels. But I will certainly come back and give you an update. We've been doing this work for the better part of 2 years, and I would say right now that our curriculum is in alignment. Now, are we finished? No. I think we need to do some more work with our teachers. We need some more materials, but I would think that we've made that gradual shift over the last 2 years.
Okay, because it's just that late. I have heard that there's some legislatures and some factions that are not so excited to have a Common Core instilled into the school. And I wondered if it would come down that Pennsylvania would opt out, how much are we investing in implementing Common Core if perhaps Pennsylvania would opt out?
Well, here's the good news. Think of the Common Core as a change in a path. Think of it less as a set of standards and guidelines. And I would think it's more of an opportunity to really work with our staff members But I think if you look at the Common Core, the intent is quite clear, that we need to do some things a little different in education today. That we need to challenge our teachers and our students, a little more rigor. I think this fits in very nicely with what we're doing with instructional rounds. That we want our teaching to become more sophisticated, we want our kids engaged in higher level thinking skills and problem solving skills. So I would hate to think that we as a system would abandon what I think the Common Core is all about. And I would agree with you, I think there's some debate going on in education circles. However, at this point in time, we're obligated to make that shift. It's already in the law. It's already, state board is a, but certainly if the state changes, then we would be responsive to that. Okay?
You have one more?
Would it be possible, I'm going to put two together then, would it be possible to get the separate dollar amounts for the Social Security, the retirement, and the working compensation? In everything I see, those three are always clumped together, and it's even noted that they're clumped together because it's presenting.
Can I ask you a favor? Would you email me your specific request tomorrow?
Sure.
Okay? I'm not the best note taker in the world,
That's okay.
so think about it tonight, get it to me tomorrow, and
Glad
so we
to.
can accommodate you, okay?
Yes. And does video capturing fit anywhere into the budget, and if it's anywhere, what is it?
I think, being honest with you, if we looked at the budget as a whole, finding whatever minimal dollars, I don't see a problem with that. It's not going to make or break the budget.
Thank you.
Other questions for Dr. Seidenberger? None appearing, we'll move on to personnel. Can I have a motion, please? Second. Are there any comments, questions on item number 2? Ms. Sanchez?
Yes, under educational conferences, that's part of personnel correct. Would it be possible to have Ms. Edmonds? Actually, I was thinking it would be great if she would be willing, or if you would approve, if we could agree on, to have her give a presentation after her conference on what restorative practices are. I read online that it's a new field of study to positively influence human behavior, that people are more happier, cooperative, and productive, and so forth. So I'm so curious about this. I wonder.
We could certainly ask, but I would also include Mr. Caparata, because this is not something new, let me assure you, Ms. Dunn. We've been working on this now probably in our 4th year with restorative practices. So I would certainly ask Mr. Caparata staff to come over, give a 10-minute presentation perhaps.
Any other questions on personnel items? None appearing, Ms. Mercer, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Stoltz.
Aye.
Mr. Barker.
Aye.
Mr. Polidoro.
Aye.
Ms. Fuller. Ms. Sanchez.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Well, in terms of legislative, it is the budget season, and as Dr. Seidenberger said, we hosted a PSBA legislative breakfast for the Lehigh County school districts. We had over 25 people in attendance, including 5 legislators. Ms. Sanchez was there, Mr. Bacher, and Ms. Fuller, and Mr. Policano, and a number of representatives. Ms. Hyde, too, sorry. I didn't get the sign-up sheet, so I didn't track who all was there trying to run the thing. But we had a number of school districts represented, both from board positions and superintendents and business managers, and we had a good discussion with the legislators. And I think the upshot of it is they don't know what the budget looks like any more than we do right at this moment. So we're still fumbling in the dark, trying to figure out what the legislators are going to do with the budget. We don't know what's out, we don't know what's in, and as usual, we're trying to make estimates, to try to get our preliminary budget approved in May, as required by law, and we still may be guessing at that point. So that's pretty much where we stand. There are still a number of legislative issues out there that may or may not turn out to be significant. I did make my pitch to the legislators that if it's important enough to mandate that we do it, it's important enough to mandate that you pay for it. And we'll see if that gets any traction, but we had a very good discussion. It was lively, everybody participated. There was a lot of give and take, and so we got some good feedback from the legislative situation. So that's the end of my legislative report. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the legislative breakfast? None appearing, we'll move on to a report about the TIP committee by Dr. Bacher.
Okay. We had a TIP meeting on March 27th, as I mentioned last meeting. I expect that should be the last committee meeting. I also expect the IDA will vote on a plan at a public meeting, perhaps next week, although it wasn't confirmed. It is a public meeting, so it should be advertised. And then the county will take up the matter the following week. And I would expect it, although it's not finalized, I would expect it to be on the May 13th agenda, perhaps, if everything goes as planned, that we'll be discussing it on the May 13th meeting. And as I mentioned last time, as soon as the LCIDA approves the plan, we're planning to put it up on our website. So it should be available to the public there. And that's all I have.
Okay, and basically we're waiting for the county to approve it before we decide to put it on our agenda.
Yeah, the county's going to review it, and we'll see what happens. I think we wanted to try to stick with the May 13th meeting because we were looking at the whole plan, and we wanted to have our approval before the township's June 6th meeting, I believe. So that's the plan.
Yeah, I understand that, but we basically are dependent on the county getting ahead of us.
Well, they're supposed to review it on the May 24th meeting, I believe, and April 24th, I'm sorry, April 24th meeting, they are going to do it as an ordinance, which requires 2 meetings. So they're going to, the May 24th, April 24th meeting, they'll review it in committee, and it'll be I guess they won't discuss it in the regular board meeting, but then it'll be up on the agenda for the May 8th meeting.
I'm not quite sure.
Our expectation. Now, we don't know what's going to happen. They delayed work on other things I've seen, so we don't know their timing, but that's the current plan right now.
Okay. Any questions for Mr.?
I just want to add a couple things. I want to thank Mr. Bacher, Dr. Bacher, for all his notes. Just want to remind the board and the public really that once the Lehigh Valley Economic Council approves this plan, all 3 agencies, all three governmental agencies, the county, Lower Country Township, and East Penn School District will then publish the full report. And it'll be there for you. Not only the narrative, but all the numbers. And so you'll certainly, as board members, as the public, see the fiscal impact of the full plan. The other thing that I think some of the folks from the Economic Council have done is put together a FAQ. So you'll be able to see common questions about the TIP. So I think both those documents will be very helpful. And I just want to remind the board that it will not be Dr. Bacher and me making a presentation. It will be PFM that will make the presentation for the board.
Okay, thank you.
I wonder if it would be helpful for us to do this as 2 meetings as well, to have a presentation and then a discussion, but then be able to pick up on how the public is reacting to it and then voting on it at the next following meeting.
The problem is there's only 1 meeting in May. I mean, it's
What if we don't vote until June?
and then that pushes everything back.
But what's I know Mr. Rhodes asked about that last time, if there was like a certain date when things needed to be done. So now, is there a date by which everything needs to be done, or?
Well, it can be determined at the time we discuss it. If it doesn't appear that we have enough information to make our decision, we can always table it at that particular time. Mr. Earnshaw?
We'll be getting their full report in advance, so their presentation will include not only a presentation of the plan, but also a point for us to ask clarifying questions. I guess if they can't answer questions that we have, then it would be certainly appropriate to defer our vote. But we've had a chance, presumably a few weeks to, probably about, 3-4 weeks?
I'm anticipating that the plan will be available to the public approximately 3 weeks, at least 3 weeks before it's
All right, so we'll have at least 3 weeks to review the plan, and I think it's incumbent upon us as directors to seek whatever feedback we wish to see before the meeting.
It's just
Ms.
that.
Sanchez, you don't have the floor. Are you done? I am. Thank you. Mr. Blocker?
I'd also like to comment that it will be presented, TFM will be making a presentation at the county meeting on the 24th, when if all goes to plan at the county meeting on the 24th. So in addition to seeing on the website, there will be a public forum and questions. So there will be a lot of opportunity for the public to hear about this if they're interested before we even have our presentation. So I mean, I've gotten feedback from the public by email. I think there's public discussion, so I think there will be plenty of time to hear it, but again, if we don't think we have enough information or think it's appropriate, we can always choose to table it to our next meeting if that seems like the good choice.
Okay. Ms. Sanchez again?
Because I just think that the difference between the county and our meeting is that the county will bring it up and then the public can go up and then the commissioners have, and then you have a lot more dialogue. Where here, if the comes and asks a question at the beginning, they're not going to get a response to their question unless we would run the meeting differently so that there is dialogue and the public's questions are answered. So I guess basically what you're saying is they should go to the county if they want to have a dialogue, where we should perhaps think of having the dialogue so that the public can have their questions answered. That's what
I was suggesting that if they have questions, they would like to email someone in advance. I've gotten questions on the tip and brought them up in the meeting, so that's an avenue if there are people that don't think they've been satisfied by the answers they received. But again, we'll see the presentation and we can make a decision on whether we have appropriate information or not and decide after a board. I think it's premature to decide what our reaction is going to be before we see the presentation and plan.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we'll go on to business operations. Item number 1, the bill list. Could I have a motion, please? Second. Discussion? Ms. Birdsall, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Fuller. Aye. Mr. Polakano.
Aye.
Mr. Walker.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Stoltz.
Abstain.
Ms. Donchev.
Abstain.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
7 ayes, 2 abstentions.
All right, is there any objection to moving items 2, 3, and 4 together?
So moved.
Second. Is there any discussion on those items? Ms. Birdsall, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Polakano.
Aye.
Mr. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Donchev.
Aye.
Ms. Fuller. Aye. Mr. Stoltz.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
7 ayes.
All right, we have an information item, PlanCon Part K, project refinancing information only as an exhibit. They're entered into the minutes of this board meeting. I do want to comment that there was a mention at the legislative breakfast of the fact that PDE is not accepting any PlanCon applications at this present time. There's a moratorium, and projects that have been waiting 2 to 3 years to be receive their reimbursement have not yet received their reimbursement because of this backlog and moratorium, and it's because the funds have been limited as to reimbursing the school districts. For those of you who are not familiar, when you do a PlanCon application process, the only reason you're doing the PlanCon application process primarily is to achieve a certain amount of reimbursement from the state. Unfortunately for East Penn, because of our aid ratio, it's about 8% of any project. So it doesn't affect us as much as it does other districts like Allentown, which have built some schools recently and are not getting reimbursed yet. from the state because of this moratorium. All right, we'll move on now to item number 6, the motion that was proposed by Ms. Sanchez last time. Ms. Sanchez, do you want to make the motion again?
Yes, this is a motion that,
Point of order, make the motion and wait for a second before discussion, please.
that the East Penn Board of School Directors bid out all the professional services. I was going to amend this to say that the...
Point of order, it can't be amended until it's been moved and seconded.
You could make the motion anew because we didn't put it on the agenda. So just make the motion as you want it to read right now, please, Ms. Sanchez.
That the East Penn Board of School Directors direct the administration to bid out all the professional services.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Ms. Sanchez, as this is your motion, will you please explain it?
Yes, I know that I've asked in the past if the auditor's report was bid out or if the bond refinancing was bid out and so forth. And I was always told that the professional services don't have to be bid out. And my concern is that we don't know if we're receiving the best service for the taxpayer's dollar if we don't bid out these services from time to time. It's common business practice to bid out services, I say at least every 3 years, but of course depending on the business. And I'm not suggesting that the vendors that we do use and the services, the professionals that we do currently use, who are providing the services, aren't providing good service. I'm just suggesting that we do not know if we could be saving money if we never bid out the services. And as is often mentioned, that we should take advantage of these economic times to bid out and to instill the competition and to get the best that we can for the taxpayer dollar.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Comments? Dr. Bacher?
I have a point of clarification. Are you asking that we seek proposals for all professional services or go through the full preparing bid packets and do all the overhead associated with it? Are you asking just to get quotes, multiple quotes?
Not necessarily multiple quotes. I think the request for proposal is really the route because they haven't been done for so long that once the RFPs are created, and then they can certainly be used in the future. But I would think for legal, for engineering, maybe insurance advisory, the bond management, I may be forgetting some, but it would be worth having the RFPs created and sending them out.
Mr. Earnshaw?
I have a number of concerns about this. First of all, there's no indication in the motion of how often we would bid it out. So are we changing our solicitor potentially every year? Every time we do a bond refinancing, would we have to go out and get a bid for the bond counsel and for the financial advisor? If we have to do that, the financial advisors aren't going to be there to bring bond refinancing opportunities to us because they won't be retained as our financial advisor. Are we going to go out and bid for a new engineer every time we have a $20,000 project that needs engineering services, or are we going to only do it once a year, once every 3 years, once every 6 months? Are we going to bid out our auditor every year? These things, this motion seems somewhat ill thought out. I'm also very concerned because we have been getting excellent service from many of our financial advisors, our bond counsel, our solicitor, our engineers. It would seem to me that the institutional memory that we get saves us a significant amount of billable time. I've worked on a number of projects as a consultant, and every time I come into a new project, there's a certain learning curve that I have to come up, and that is all billed to my client when I do that work. If we end up having to do that, well, a new solicitor, which I would not suggest, Mr. Fisher, just so you know, but a new solicitor would have to review all the pending cases, all of the ongoing actions that we're involved in. We would be paying for those services, so we might save a few dollars an hour and spend many more hours during the transition time. And if we're doing that on a regular basis, that churn will eat up not only billable time for our advisors, but also plenty of administrative time as they work to bring these people up to speed. I think quite often we look at these and say yes, we can save a few dollars, and they end up being false savings. We once bid out an architectural project. We ended up going with the low bidder. We got significantly lower quality work. It led to a lot more cost overruns on that project than any of the other projects we had done before that point in my tenure on the board. And we felt, as we did a post-mortem, that it was at least in part because the architect was cutting corners to save time and save money to meet the bid that they had given us. And that's always the challenge we run into with professional services. We are required by law to take the low bidder on any kind of a project above a certain dollar threshold. And we've also found significant problems with that, where we've had cost overruns and delays. We've had to do that because it's the law. Going into, let's just say, the Willow Lane project, we knew we had a low bidder that had had some problems with delays on other projects. Well, big surprise, we had several months worth of delay on that project. It caused us quite a bit of extra cost when we went to try to open that school. So you always have to judge the dollar savings on what you think is the price tag and what you're really going to pay in the long run. So I would not be in favor of doing this. If we have a professional service that's not providing us with the kind of service we think we should be getting, then we should definitely look at doing an RFP. So if you think that our bond counsel is doing an inferior job, then we should talk about it and consider engaging a new bond counsel, but not changing it on an annual basis or a project-by-project basis or a quarter-by-quarter basis or whatever schedule we might end up coming up with. Thank you, Mr. Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Earnshaw. Any other want to speak at the moment? Dr. Bonner?
I'd like to make a couple comments. One, I think the notion that we do not seek quotes is implicit in this is not accurate. I know on some of the design work we did last year, we had a discussion about, I think it was the pool work. We wanted to have two bidders on it, and we even had to take one from Philadelphia because there weren't competent bidders in this area. So I think that the administration does seek bids when it's appropriate. I would say we at least one or two other times discussed whether we should bid something out. One, I believe, was something with PSBA, and I think the consensus, or at least what I took away from that, was that it would cost us more to bid it out, and even if there were some savings, as Mr. Earnshaw was talking about, the cost and overhead of bidding out process would eat up. It was just such a small amount of money for the professional services that the cost of bidding it would consume any savings, and we'd likely spend more money. So in my mind, I mean, of all the things that have come before the board, I haven't seen one case where this is brought up that we think we would have saved money. So I'm kind of surprised that we want to generalize that to all cases when we haven't seen any documented evidence of I mean, I agree it sounds good, but there are a lot of things that when we discuss specific instances, I don't think we'll see the savings. So I'm not in favor of this, at least in its present form.
No one else has any comments in the first round? I'm going to put my comments in. The first thing that comes to mind on this issue is that ultra-conservatives are always telling government that we need to do, and what we need to do is act more like businesses. This motion flies in the face of that notion. No businessman in his right mind would ever suggest complicating a procurement process with unneeded overhead when it wasn't needed. To put things out for bid requires a bid specification, publishing notices, having pre-bid meetings, then reviewing bids and making recommendations for approval. All of this work takes time by someone on our staff, for which we have to pay them in lieu of doing something else for the district that would actually provide something constructive. It actually presumes that our staff has lots of free time to take on additional work. It takes time for all of the work and processes to occur, and thus delays obtaining the services required. In some cases, the internal cost, as has been stated earlier, to go through such a process would exceed the cost of the intended purchase, depending on what the service was. Remember, we are also potentially talking about small medical services or things for special needs students. And I wouldn't think you'd want to delay that kind of thing. That is not being businesslike, to put that kind of additional requirement on when there hasn't been a showing of the positive need. There are certainly times and types of procurement, such as building projects for millions of dollars, where competitive bids might allow for cost savings. But even then, as we have seen in a couple of projects in East Penn, having to go with the so-called lowest responsible bidder has caused legal problems, unfinished work, and extra expense for the taxpayers in the long run. Anyone proposing to put such a process into play for every service is just asking to multiply these problems 100-fold. Businesses don't buy everything by bid, or even if they do go out to bid, they may choose to go with someone other than the lowest price bidder because they want better quality goods or services. The school code provides for not having to go out for bids on things like maintenance items of less than $18,500 precisely for the efficiency factor mentioned earlier. It is also legal for boards of school directors to authorize the proper school employee to purchase perishable food supplies for cafeterias without advertising for bids. The time factor is the important thing there. You want the food fresh, not waiting for somebody to come in with a bid. So when I see one of these, what I consider to be thoughtless, on-the-bus, force everything into one ideological approach motions, I have to wonder if there's any real rationale behind it. So far tonight, I haven't heard anything beyond vague soundbite answers that leave me wondering, so why do you really want to do this? There are other reasons why this motion would be poorly serving the district. Most professional services are obtained under a request for proposal process, which is not strictly a bid process. It is typically used where the public entity seeks to enter into a contract in the area of professional services, such as architectural, engineering, or legal services. This is because contracts for those services are not governed by the rule of lowest responsible bidder, and in fact can be awarded in many cases without any competition whatsoever into a bidder whose bid is not the lowest in price. In Malloy versus Boreatown Area School Board, a seminal case in this area, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court described the reasons why the low bid rule does not apply to professional services contracts, after particularly noting that professional service exemptions under the school code were implicit in the school district concept under the school code as a matter of statutory construction. In other words, it's a matter of black letter law that you don't have to bid those contracts out. And the Supreme Court said, for those contracts for which the distinctiveness and quality of service is the paramount concern, there exists a special relationship between the property owner and the contractor. In these types of contracts, the contractor owes a special duty of loyalty to the property owner because the contractor, in essence, becomes the property owner's agent and therefore must act in good faith and always in furtherance of the property owner's interest. The Supreme Court statement nicely summarizes why professional service contracts are not subject to the low bid rule. There is an element of trust in such contracts, and this element is not necessarily assumed by the bidder whose bid is the lowest. So the public entity has discretion in the award of such contracts and can seek to enter into such contract through an RFP, not a bidding process. That is why, under that black letter statutory law that I referred to, competitive bids do not have to be obtained for professional services, like engineering, architectural, legal, accounting, insurance, or other similar professional services such as medical. In the cases of needing professional, legal, medical, or engineering services, you have to be able to go to someone you can trust to provide such services, not the cheapest provider of something you can find. In fact, Rule 48 of the Rules of Professional Conduct for the National Society of Professional Engineers states this principle as, the practice of engineering is a learned profession, requiring of its members sound technical training, broad experience, personal ability, honesty, and integrity. The selection of engineering services by an evaluation of these qualities should be the basis of comparison rather than competitive bids. So for these efficiency, legal, ethical, and practical reasons, I can't support this motion. If not in its intent, the imposition of this motion would cause undue harm to the operation of this district, and I can in good conscience allow it to occur. Second round, somebody want to speak? Ms. Donchez.
Just a couple comments. I purposely didn't put in a time frame because it is hard to know exactly or how often that you would want to put out the services for bid. I understand the request for proposal, and I would say that that is more what I had in mind, the request for proposal, so that you do get to evaluate the proposals and not only choose it on the lowest bid. And I think that that would be worth doing, the request for proposal for these, at least these services that I mentioned. How to exactly word it, I'm not sure. As far as the work and the time to go into it, it is worth some time always to know whether we are getting the best service for our taxpayers' dollars. And it's our fiduciary responsibility to check into this stuff every now and then to make sure that we are on track and that we are doing the best with the taxpayers' dollars.
Well, if I may point out, the way the motion was phrased was to bid out all professional services. But I just heard Ms. Donchez say was from time to time. So what she is suggesting versus what she has submitted are diametrically opposed. And I don't know that we can do justice to this vote. I know that the way it is written, I certainly will vote against it. I think we need to give our administration the flexibility to react when the district needs services. If we would vote in favor of bidding out all professional services, that would not reflect what Ms. Donchez just said, to book time. So I don't think that this is an effective motion.
Thank you, Ms. Fuller. Mr. Stoltz.
Far be it for me to tell Ms. Donchez what to do, but I might suggest that in the interest of effectiveness, perhaps either tabling or withdrawing our motion at the present time and resubmitting it at a later date to update her statements might be a wise idea.
I would agree with that. I would like to give this more thought, giving and taking into the account everything that everybody's offered tonight. So if I would put a withdrawal motion, I would like to do that.
Is that all right with the Senator? The motion has been withdrawn, and at the time when Ms. Donchez submits it to the ordinary process for the agenda, it will be put back on the agenda as with all other motions by board members. Is there any new business to come before the board this evening? Ms. Donchez?
Yes, I would have asked about this last week, but Mr. Clancy wasn't here. So just like to understand this. There was a check number last week, 18867. It was for $83,804.72. It was to make out to the USI Insurance Services. I had asked, it's for workers' compensation. It's a fourth installment in our yearly plan. And I think that insurance is going to be coming up again since this was done in June last year. So I just want to understand. I asked to confirm the commission, and it said that we do not pay commission. However, I've been told that we do pay 4% commission. So I'm just trying to understand. So this check then goes to USI. Our workman's compensation is through PMA. So then USI takes the check from us and pays PMA, and they take 4% for
PMA gets, PMA pays USI the commission. Okay, so we do have someone from USI on our Insurance Advisory Council. So they do get a commission and they do sit on our, they do benefit.
I think I explained that last time. I explained the whole process. Yes.
It wasn't that clear. So
It's all members of the insurance commission get a splitting equity that they share. They all share the commission. It's not one person on the commission.
So people on the commission benefit from being on the commission. They're advising us. I don't know, that doesn't sound right.
It was expressed at that meeting that it's like an insurance agent. Your local insurance agent goes around and finds the best insurance for you. You buy that insurance and they get a commission. It seems like it's the same thing. But it was explained last time that rather than having one insurance agent, you have two insurance agents. And so they split the commission. Correct. I don't know what.
I don't know, it almost sounds like racketeering for people to be on the commission and to receive commission for being on this advisory council.
Maybe we need to change the way the insurance industry needs to change the way how insurance agents are paid. We can't do that.
Mr. Earnshaw?
Yeah, so the way insurance is in the industry works, you have to buy it from an insurance broker. You can't buy it directly from the insurance company for these sorts of policies, is my understanding. And the insurance company, as with most companies, pays a commission to the independent salespeople who represent it. Now, we have two people who serve on our consortium, I believe, and so they share the commissions. That way, there's no incentive for one to pick one policy that gives him or her a better commission than the other one, because they're going to both work together to find the best policies for us. If you would prefer to work with a single insurance broker, and they would get all of the commissions for every insurance policy we buy. I like the idea of having two people, two sets of eyes, working with all of their contacts in the insurance agency or in the insurance industry to find the best deals for us. I don't see why this is so hard for you to understand that that's the way insurance works. The insurance companies pay a commission to the brokers who sell the policies. That's how it's always worked, at least in the 40 years or so that I've been buying insurance. I don't know why it would be different for us as a school district from everywhere else in the industry. You do not have the form as time. You know, for me personally, I've purchased insurance both for commercial entities as well as personal. It works the same way everywhere. So I don't know what the issue is here. Thank you, Mr. Keller.
I guess the issue to me is that they're in an advisory role and that they get paid commission for advising us on what policies or what policies to buy.
Well, perhaps we just name it the insurance brokers, and then it wouldn't be an advisory council. They wouldn't be advising us, they'd just be selling us insurance. I think that's essentially what it amounts to.
But is the consensus that there is an incentive to get us the very best prices if we're going to make commission off of them?
Yes. It won't be on the commission that it turns out that they've been stiffing us. And we're supposed to be on top of that too. Ms. Hyde?
I'm just going to add in one thing. I changed my insurance, my car, my house insurance, probably every 2 years, and we use that as a basis to make sure we're getting the best rates by looking at what we've done in the past. So the only reason I'm saying this is because we don't go into this blind. We don't just say, oh, okay, this is 1% higher, or this is, we look at past aspects, and my husband and I decide if it's the best for us. And we have a group of professionals that assist us, and the gentleman that we use has been fantastic, and I know he's getting money from Ally right now.
So then what is the cost?
Does anybody else want to speak? last round is done.
So what is the process for evaluating, knowing that they are getting us the best?
They sit down and go over all of the quotes that they received before we make a final recommendation to the board. So we're comparing the last 2-3 years of quotes. We have information on valuations. We have mod formula for workers' compensation that tell us if it's going up, you know your costs are going up. If it's going down, your costs should be going down. And that's based on a mathematical calculation of the number of accidents and the number of claims that we have. We go through and analyze that, and then if costs don't track to that numerical analysis, then there's something wrong and we need to look at another company or do some more homework.
Anybody else? Okay. Nothing else appearing? Announced that we had an executive session prior to this meeting to discuss negotiations, real estate, confidential matters, personnel? Okay, personnel. I urge you to attend one of the almost sold-out performances of Emmaus High School Spring Musical Legally Blonde on April 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. There will be a matinee on the 13th. On April 15th and through 19th, there will be elementary early dismissal, and the next school board meeting is here in this room at 7:30 p.m. on April 22nd. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.